Hi guys, hello everyone. How are you? So I got two of you here.
Good
Um,
morning.
you flip screens. I see Kathy and I see
Hi,
Rachel.
Cal.
So good to see you both. How's summer?
Oh, good.
Good.
Really good.
Hot. Didn't our 4th of July seem like it was never going to end?
Yes, it did.
It was
Uh,
so fun, but I'm like, whoa, I am ready for work. Let's see. So I'm not sure how many people are joining us today. Summer's been an interesting, I think, just for everyone to having moving schedules. So I won't wait too long. I'll wait a few more minutes to see who else joins in. Can you guys see my screen?
yes.
Mhm.
I put together a fun presentation. This is some resources, Kathy. I wonder if you've seen it before, but I have updated it and it's a little more up to date. And I also included questions from members who wanted to ask questions. But yeah, I have some like good motivating research for us today. And then I'll be here for questions. So if you have any, don't hesitate to write them down, or we can even kick off with them. But let me get this started and then I'll give 3 more minutes for people to roll in. Yeah. Monday came quickly.
You can say that again.
I got both kids
Uh,
in Let's see here. Present. There we go. Um, but yeah, as we wait for people to linger in, do you guys have any questions to kick us off with? And it does not have to be related to a detox or cleanse or anything like that.
hmm, not really. Just the water is a good focus. It's getting better. And yeah, getting vegetable intake has always been an issue, but it really the shakes do help to increase, especially if I have it in the morning.
Yeah.
So,
I agree. I have a slide in today's presentation, just easy ways to fiber, and it's typically vegetables. So maybe I could give you some ideas there. And I think it's just like small efforts. Even like the holidays, we had so many barbecues and parties that I always brought something that was vegetable, usually raw veggies and dip. But I wanted things, I would just focus on protein and I made sure, even if like it wasn't that sexy, but I would eat the celery and carrots and radishes just to kind of like be mindful. And I think mindfulness is the biggest part. And then secondly, being organized and making healthy food an obvious choice. Um, and then smoothies are easier. It's funny, smoothies are simple for me right now, but right now salads are just like not as desired. So it's kind of just knowing
mhm.
what you're feeling and appreciating it and kind of just going with it. Um, Rachel, I keep wanting to call you Mike.
That's okay. I gotta figure out how to change that.
I mean, it's okay. Um, how and maybe too, Rachel, are you vegetabling any fun way that's just getting the job done?
No, I mean salads are usually what covers it for me, and then usually have a vegetable with dinner.
Yeah.
Whether I'm getting enough, I don't know, but um,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. And I always at dinner when I make dinner, like I make a fresh meal, like probably 4 times a week at best. Maybe it's
mhm,
just 3 times, and we do a lot of leftovers, but I'm always like 2 veggies. There's always I gotta prep 2 veggies. And one's
okay,
usually like potato-esque, and the other one's usually like cruciferous. But it's
mhm,
always 2 veggies is kind of like my rule of thumb. That's just kind of become my um health rules that I have for myself overall.
yeah. Actually, the we talked about the glucose goddess and her thing about having a vegetable starter. Honestly, that helps too as an
Yeah,
idea. Even just to eat, carrots or whatever as you're preparing
yeah,
will help you get your veggies in. I don't always do that though. So
yeah. Oh, for sure. Let me see what time it is. We'll give it 1 more minute. I'll have a look too, to see how many people. Oops, so many people are suddenly texting me. How many people replied yes? My daughter is getting her teeth pulled. She has to get her teeth pulled
Oh,
and then get braces. So I had to like shuffle so much stuff around this week. So thanks for your patience. Hopefully this time worked okay for everyone. Um, all right, give myself a little bolus of insulin, running a little high this morning. But let's get started. And I love small groups always. Kathy usually always part of that. I appreciate your loyalty. But as I'm talking, feel free to interrupt or even just put a message in the chat and I'll see it. Um, but it's July. We're halfway through 2024, which is kind of crazy to think about. And it's such a good time to focus on detox, maybe because here in the Midwest and even in the US, it's summer and sweating's a big part of that. But also, I think it's a good opportunity to kind of reflect on, the new year. There's always a health goal. And then I think July is another opportunity to kind of analyze, like, okay, check in with ourselves. Let's analyze how we're doing and what do we need. So I'm going to move this. I don't think you guys can see that bar, but it was in the middle of my screen. I'm also going to condense my little video and I'll switch to next slide. You know what? Somehow I clicked the wrong thing. So overall, the hard truths with toxins is today more than ever, the toxin load just keeps getting higher and higher. They're the primary cause of chronic conditions from diabetes to dementia and so forth. I read today, and I didn't look deeply at this newsletter that came in, but it said 2 out of 3 or 1 to 2 out of 3 women will get some form of dementia in their lifetime. And really, we need to protect our gut and protect our brain on the susceptibility of this overall. But toxins they're harsh on our body and they're something we can't necessarily see. And I don't want to lead with fear, so I want to make sure I pave the way of steps you can take. But toxins can damage the gut to thyroid to brain and more. And I think of the thyroid, there's a handful of things I think of. When people have low thyroid, and I'm in this camp, I flirt going on thyroid medication and coming off of it just with that on the edge of needing supplemental hormones for my thyroid. But we're usually poor detoxifiers. And I know from just various tests on myself, I have a genetic disposition called MTFHR. And MTFHR is a pretty common genetic SNP in most Americans. I think it's like 40% of people have MTFHR, and we don't methylate vitamins very well. So if I took folic acid, for example, my body would behave very differently than someone who doesn't have this genetic disposition. For someone who has MTFHR like myself, and I take folic acid, it'll actually bind more folate and take it out of my body. So anytime I take vitamins, which you guys probably know I'm pretty passionate about filling nutrient gaps with pharmaceutical grade supplements, methylated B vitamins are just the standard. So if you're taking any vitamins that aren't from my full script or recommendation, just make sure that it doesn't have folic acid just to protect yourself on that front. But people with low thyroid tend to have they poorly detox, and the conversion of active hormones usually done in the liver and the gut. So if you have a low thyroid, just consider like, what extra steps can I take to really support my detox pathways, let alone your thyroid hormones. And when I think of thyroid hormones, I think of eating seaweed, I think of eating Brazil nuts, I think of a gluten-free, maybe dairy-free diet. Easier said than done. As babies, before we're even brought into the world, we are exposed to toxins in utero, and GMOs have just become so popular in the last 3 decades. And the level of genetically modified organism crops like soy, corn, a lot of grains. Another one that's like the top of the list for genetically modified foods is almonds. So I've been looking at almonds a little more closely. I use all the Ciate wraps. They're these wraps that are usually like chickpeas or almond meal. Also, I love Birch Blender pancakes. They're gluten-free paleo pancakes, but they're actually not organic. So the genetically modified organisms in there could be higher. And what matters here is GMOs are just hard on our gut. They're hard on our gut, and they can drive more inflammation in someone who might be at risk of exposures of toxin or leaky gut or more. So do I avoid Ciate wraps now that are low carb and good for blood sugars? Do I avoid Birch Blender pancakes? Not entirely, but I'm more aware of, like, now, because I eat a lot of forms of almond. I have the opportunity, I seek out organic. So when something's organic, it cannot be genetically modified, rule of thumb. So like corn chips, I try to get organic. Edamame, I try to get organic, and so forth. Overall, there's 400% increase in allergies in 2024 compared to prior years. And then there's increases, and these are all things that are related to gut and brain, increase in asthma, ADHD, autism, and so forth. So usually when usually children are diagnosed first with ADHD or autism, but that's not always the case. Adults can be too. That a functional physician will think of, okay, how can we make sure your body's detoxing properly? Is somebody pooping enough? Is someone on methylated B vitamins? Because B vitamins are so important for so many functions in the body, including detox. Are they hydrated enough? Is their gut leaky? What food groups might be really impacting their brain? There's a commonality with ADHD and autism with an issue of red food dye. Red food dye only is a problem for 1 in 4 people. But nonetheless, that's another thing I'm aware of. But at one of the cookouts, I was like, Tegan, what are the desserts over there? Is there anything gluten-free? And she goes, Mom, there's gluten-free Rice Krispie treats, but there's food dye in them. So food dye is something, as well as this GMO, trying to seek out organic when possible. I try to reach for, but it's not always 100% compliance. Life is not about perfection. I ended up not having Rice Krispie treats, even though they were gluten-free. And it's not because there was food dye, it's just not a treat that I think is worth having. So I'm more of a chocolate girl, if I'm being honest. But just some hard truths on toxins here. Overall, the liver is the second largest organ to the body, to the skin. The skin's our largest organ. And what we put on our skin, we absorb about 70% of it. One practice I've really delved in more in my 40th year of life is dry skin brushing. So I'll get one of those dry skin brushes that look like a horse brush. And before I shower, I just make circular motions from my ankle to my limbs towards your heart. So you should do circular motions throughout all your skin. And it kind of is abrasive, from my ankles up my legs to my belly to my heart. And then I'll do a similar motion on my arms. And I recently did it, and like our skin will just feel so amazing. It's almost like an exfoliation. And just like you don't want to exfoliate your face every day, you want to make sure you space out when you dry skin brush, but it's very stimulating for your lymph. It's very stimulating for circulation. So as a type 1 diabetic, wherever I'm putting my insulin pump or injecting insulin, I'll use that dry skin brush and take a moment and really rub out those areas just to get a good blood flow to help heal those areas and prevent scar tissue. But also on the other lens, it's supportive of a detox. So if you don't have one of those dry skin brushes, I think I've put them in my functional nutrition weekly as my product of the week. But I will do that again. So I'll send out my weekly after today's recording. But I'll put dry skin brush. I'll just put all products that I mentioned here today. Let's see here. The liver helps regulate a number of things. I already talked about the conversion of thyroid hormone, but also our cortisol, also like any vitamins or medication or allergy meds. The liver is just so important. Not that one organ is more important than the other, but the liver is basically a conductor of the whole body and regulates so much balance in our body, from blood sugar to, again, sex hormones to stress. The liver, gallbladder, and kidney are the 3 top detox organs. So as I do Cleanse with Kelly, for example, I do that seasonally as a group, offering the support for free. People just buy the kit itself, and I'll have a link for that here soon. It's targeting the gallbladder, kidney, and liver. And it's important, one, as someone with an autoimmune disease, I want to support and nourish the kidneys. It's supportive of that, but also any woman who have had over age 35 or any women who have had children, the risk of gallbladder eruption is much higher. So we want to make sure, again, we're really supporting our gallbladder so we absorb our fat soluble vitamins well. So we support our bowels, that we have good poops every day. The gallbladder has a huge play in that. So if your gallbladder's off, it's really hard to tell. You might get stomach pains. You might think, oh, that food's not sitting well, especially if it's something greasy. But also, if you look at your bowel movement, if it's a really light color, that can be fat malabsorption. And usually there's not enough bile to help your fat digest and absorb. So if your poop looks a weird color, it's time to really consider what needs supported. It could be very much the gallbladder. And you can support the gallbladder with fiber by chewing your food, by doing a liver cleanse, avoiding fried foods, and moderating how much fat you're eating overall. The liver is your fat burning organ. And often when weight's in the midsection, it can be a sign of fatty liver. But weight in your midsection also can be a misregulation of cortisol. Weight in your midsection can also be insulin resistance. And someone does not need to be overweight or obese to have fatty liver. I was actually one of the various gatherings I had over the week. My good friend from college, she's like, yeah, and she's very, very, very petite. And she's like, yeah, I have this condition, and she named the disease, and she's like, I have fatty liver. And you never would think someone who might be quite thin has fatty liver, but size does not always matter on how optimal our health is by any means. And I think we all know that, but especially with fatty liver, you don't have to be overweight to have a fatty liver. Fatty liver can be a driver of alcohol abuse, too much stress on the liver from antibiotics to infections, to too much sugar, and more. Any questions yet?
Yeah. So I think we've talked about this, but I think I'm getting to be insulin resistant along with the type 1. Is there any natural way to help that along, or am I going to have to go on something for that?
Yeah, for insulin resistance with age, often I see it in women, with women over the age 35, then hitting 40, then 45, then 50,
Yeah.
with the relationship to perimenopause and menopause.
Mhm.
I'm always transparent. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but I have a family history of early menopause, also with type 1 diabetes that puts us at risk of earlier than anticipated menopause. Average age of menopause is 50. So I'm 40, 40 and a half, 40 and a half. And I went on estrogen a month and a half ago. And obviously, I'm injecting, I actually manage my blood sugars in an interesting way. I inject Tresiba, that's long acting insulin, every single day. And then I use an insulin pump just for my meals and corrections. So that's kind of weird, but I have absorption problems a lot. So I just want to remove the mental burden of, is my pump working right for that background insulin? Long story short, I realized in a month and a half, I'm almost taking 15% less insulin because I'm now utilizing HRT of estrogen. I'm using an estrogen patch. So one,
Okay.
I'm going on tangents, but one
No,
is
that's
really
okay.
thinking about what could be driving insulin resistance. Is it stress or sleep? Is it hydration? Is it sex hormones? Is it the composition of meals? So as well, no matter how our sex hormones are, who we are, our tolerance to carbohydrates will slightly go down with age. And cholesterol will slightly go up. Insulin resistance naturally slightly goes up with age. It doesn't mean it's okay, but we can modify our diet in a way that, one, we want to prioritize protein more than ever as we age because our needs go up, but our total carbohydrates may need to come down. But someone might come to me and they're like, Kelly, but I'm eating like 15 grams of carbs per meal. You mean I need to go down? And no, not necessarily. I think it's almost time for a reset to reanalyze. Okay, are you eating the right carbohydrates? Are you eating the right types of fats and protein? Is there inflammation in your body? Also, this cleanse with Kelly. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I don't think you've done it. I do see after I do the program, I become more insulin sensitive because we're supporting the liver. And when the liver is optimized, the glucose drip we have coming from the liver, hence why we need basal insulin, it becomes more efficient and better
Okay.
overall. So there's kind of a various angles to support insulin resistance. And usually stress is number one. Number two is sleep. Number three is hydration. That's majoring in the majors. And how do you support
Okay.
that? Usually sleep's influenced by sex hormones. So it's a little bit of chicken and an egg for a few of these things. And then time restricted eating. So time restricted eating, intermittent fasting is a tool, but it's not a tool for everyone. So time restricted eating can be helpful with circadian fasting, and that's 12 hours fasting, 12 hours of eating. That's a very healthy practice. Some people do better eating in a 10-hour window. A smaller percentage do better in an 8-hour window. But again, as women, we have to protect our cortisol as we are working on insulin resistance because we don't want to intermittent fast. Next thing you know, we're spiking cortisol. So
Okay.
to know if you're fasting too long in the morning, I know a handful of us have continuous glucose monitors on ourselves. If we fast throughout the morning, we see this steady rise of blood sugar. That's cortisol. So we need to eat to tell our body it's safe. So delaying that
Okay.
first meal is not ideal. We need to first take care of cortisol before intermittent fasting is a sharp tool to use.
Okay. Because that's happening to me where, I mean, as soon as I get up, it's on the rise.
Yeah.
So I guess I need to eat as quickly as possible then in the morning.
Yeah. And it's hard when we eat with others, which is a good thing. The benefits of intermittent fasting, the best benefits, and again, not for everyone, but for the what research shows is reverse fasting, and that's leaving more space from dinner to bed.
At the end of the day. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another tool to bring into the picture is, of course, ALA. ALA helps with insulin sensitivity, as chromium does, as does berberine. ALA, chromium, berberine. These are
Okay.
nutrients that we're often deficient in.
I got two of the three. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And
Okay.
then berberine, I say this often, but I'm a broken record, but it's a supplement that's promoted left and right and almost in everything possible that's related to metabolic health. But we don't want to take berberine longer than 3 months at a time
Hmm.
because it's almost like a vacuum of insulin resistance and a vacuum of bad bacteria in our digestive tract. But we can over vacuum things. We can over cleanse things. We can almost sanitize even good bacteria. So that's why I say go on berberine. It's usually, I'm almost blanking, 200 milligrams in the morning, 200 milligrams at night. It might be 400 and 400, but it's twice a day, almost taken like metformin, but take a break after 3 months of a month, and then you can go back on. But
Okay.
hopefully that helps break insulin resistance, maybe even help someone lose a few pounds and become more insulin sensitive overall.
Okay.
So that was,
So I guess I'm sorry.
no, I
I'm
love,
taking up your time. But so I went on hormone therapy and I saw a difference, a good difference for like 2 weeks, and now I'm back to where I was. Now, job has been very stressful over the last 6 weeks or so,
yeah,
which is about the time that I've been on the HRT. So I'm going to try and get that changed because I want to go on the patch and then an oral progesterone, see if that helps just with the sleep and all that.
yeah,
Uh, but and then I'll be doing the cleanse then on the 15th, starting on the 15th. And then
yeah,
I see Dr. Wine like 3 weeks from that.
yeah.
So hopefully I'll have that week of being off the cleanse to really notice whether my sugars are better
Yeah, insulin
so that
resistance.
I can discuss that with her. Okay.
Yeah. And it's
Okay.
interesting too. We have quite a few of people on here with type 1. Ozempic is the hot conversation. Um,
Right.
and with type 1 diabetes, we don't produce 6 hormones. And amylin's one of them, and a GLP-1 mimics that amylin. So more and more type 1s are going on Ozempic or Victoza to support the insulin resistance because we're completely lacking a hormone that regulates satiety, gastric emptying, and also slows the release of glucose from our liver. That's what the hormone does, and we don't have that. Um,
Okay.
so
Okay.
that's
So
also
that's a possibility then in my future, I guess.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It is.
All right.
But usually with type 1, people may not go on this full dose that a lot of people are getting for weight loss, but it's really
Mhm.
just to mimic the hormone that our pancreas is completely not producing.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And a lot of people are not notified about that option because they can cause very dangerous low blood sugars. So
Ozempic can?
why? Yeah. And some people are
Okay.
like, why isn't my endo telling me about this? And it's a tricky med to use because it can kill someone. But once you have a good idea of the personality of your type 1 diabetes, it can be a medication to advocate for.
Okay. Also, with my sugars that are going up in the morning, they're really hard to catch. Is that typical of the cortisol too?
Yeah, and too, it sounds like dawn phenomenon. And I think just continuous stress and hydration and sleep the best you can, but don't put pressure on sleep because sometimes when we're like, I'm not sleeping, the next thing it's 10 times worse.
Right.
So
Okay.
just control what you can control, utilize berberine, um, is where I would start. Uh,
Okay.
Stress, hydration, do the cleanse. Um, and know
Okay.
like life is short. My college roommate it was just a packed week. My college roommate's husband has cystic fibrosis. And
Oh,
that's really stressful, especially as an adult. The longevity of cystic fibrosis isn't long. So she's kind of had low level stress all the time. And she was just diagnosed with epilepsy. She was
oh
having
goodness.
seizures. And they said, was this turned on by chronic stress? Is what the physicians asked. And at the end of the day, it's wild what our job can do to our stress load, which in the end is just dictating our health, our brain, our
Mhm.
body, our
Mhm.
everything.
Mhm.
So remember, life is short and try to isolate. Easier said than done. Isolate stressors the best you can and know like your work doesn't define your worth. Your blood sugar data doesn't define your worth. Your size, your shape, your hobbies don't just define our worth. And just make sure to let it be as much as possible.
Okay. Thank you.
Some labs that show that your liver might need support. Again, I talked about thyroid. Thyroid conditions often identify people as low detoxifiers and just giving support there. Also, when you do some form of a cleanse, it's eating more whole, real foods, and organic when possible when the budget allows, but definitely organic for the corn, soy, almonds where you can, and then the dirty dozen. Dirty dozen tends to be things without skin. Think of all the leafy greens, grapes. We're not peeling grapes, and that would even include wine, and so forth. A high LDL cholesterol I usually take in consideration when I see a high LDL cholesterol or even high triglyceride, high fasting blood sugar, and high A1C, because high blood sugars can put more pressure on the liver. And then this AST, ALT, I like looking at that. And the ranges are broad for both of these levels. People might be like, I don't even understand what that is. It looks like Chinese. But AST, ALT are enzymes of the liver, and they will not be out of range until there is fatty liver. But if you're in that upper quadrant, it's an idea to give the liver some support with a real food cleanse. And depending where you're coming from in your health and diet, you might need to pace the cleanse out a little better, versus taking the program at face value. So the program I most often use is 2 smoothies a day, 2 packets of vitamins, and then eating a paleo diet, not walking around hungry. But some people might need to do just 1 packet of vitamins and 1 smoothie. And you usually can get that notification if you're having really bad headaches or feeling really nauseous, or even having kidney pain. Um, so AST, ALT in the upper quadrant on your traditional labs, physicians will say, oh, you're all within range, move on, carry on. But we do really need to look at our own labs and convert them to, I have a worksheet at the end of this presentation you all can download. High insulin levels. Again, insulin is, there's a relationship from the pancreas to the liver on that glucose drip to insulin, and we want that in a teeter-totter balance. But when insulin's really high, the liver might be even working harder. And imbalanced sex hormones. So the liver is detoxifying excess estrogen. On a daily basis. And we can become estrogen dominant if the liver needs support. So some labs that you can kind of look for signs, yellow or red eyes, like really looking at the white of people's eyes. Like I always look at slower days and I'm like, their eyes are so white. One, who knows what they're doing? But two, it's a sign. Chronic fatigue, of course, your body's working harder. It's worn out. Weight loss resistance. No morning hunger can be a sign your liver needs support. It's also a sign of high cortisol. If you're really sensitive to smells, let's say you walk into Victoria's Secret and there's all those smells, or Bath and Body Works, and if you feel overwhelmed with those smells, it might be too much of a burden for you and a sign you need to support. Constipation, bloating, itching skin. Itching skin can also be related to sex hormone imbalance. Dark lines under the eyes can be a sign the liver needs help. It also can be a sign of a food sensitivity. Seasonal allergy, food sensitivities, again, imbalanced sex hormones. How many times do I have that on here? Abundant alcohol consumption, low fruit or veg intake, taking various medications, even if it's benign ones like pain pills or allergy pills, often easily bruise, brown spots on hands or face. That's also a relationship of insulin resistance and carrying weight in the midsection. So there's some things like, okay, how much do I need to support my body more on detox? And I don't think we should ever hold ourselves back from detoxing in specific ways. And let me talk about the key players that help with that. Overall, just here, reduce your exposure to toxins the best you can is one way to unclog the drain. You want to shield the toxins. You want to have boundaries on where they're coming into your life, your food, your beauty products, your body lotions, your sunscreens. If you have plugins in your outlets, if you have those air fresheners in your car, those are toxins. The only thing that have scents that are more safe for scents is essential oils. So I like this thing over here in my plugged in outlet. It's called Pura. And Pura has essential oil of various scents, and it smells beautiful. It smells very clean, and it's very healthy for us to inhale. And then a cleanse is just so important. As I started my business 12 years ago, I had this intuition drive that a cleanse is really important. As someone with type 1 diabetes, I was always told to never fast and to never cleanse. But when you have an understanding of your blood sugars, it's almost essential to cleanse often because we need that extra support to prevent complications and more. And even if someone doesn't have type 1, we just inundated with stress and toxins in our lives that it's a good practice, almost a self-care movement of 2 weeks to kind of focus on ourselves and make ourselves such a strong priority and hopefully bleeds over into a longer term than 2 weeks. Overall, to open up our detox pathways, hydration is really important. And so is sleep. And sleep is fragile. What's the saying? Don't focus on having perfect sleep every single night. That's a lot of pressure, but do the best you can at least 4 out of the 7 nights a week of getting 8 hours. Of getting 8 hours. If 8 hours is unrealistic, aim for 6. See where you can move. I had a client, I was like, let's just improve your sleep by 10 minutes. 10 minutes is a lot for the brain, a lot for the body. And accumulated of 10 minutes, it adds up to a lot of time. So major in the majors, hydrate the best you can. I have so many drinks in front of me. Sleep the best you can, cold room, eye mask, earplugs, mouth guard, whatever you need. And again, I'm nailing this message home, hydrate and sleep again. Dry skin brush, I talked about that. Oil pulling, this is a harder practice to do, and don't let me sabotage your efforts before we even start. Oil pulling is a little harder because you need to put coconut oil, a teaspoon, half a teaspoon in your mouth, and you swish it around to 10 to 15 minutes. After that, you spit that oil out into your trash can, not toilet. You'll clog your pipes, and that'll help pull extra yeast and bad bacteria out of your oral cavity. And our oral health is as much as influenced to our gut health. And this is a very cheap, healthy practice to fuel healthy gut microbiome overall, but also pull any bad bacteria, excess yeast, and so forth out of your body. Another sauna, if you have access to a sauna, supplement strategically, cleanse with Kelly, rebound work, that's like jumping jacks to jumping on a trampoline. Yoga inversions. Yoga is so helpful for moving our lymph. And like I'll have clients in down dog and in downward facing dog. That's a pose of rest in yoga, but it's still hard, but it's so good to invert our body. Epsom salt baths, that will help enhance sleep quality, but it'll also help bind toxins out of your body. Epsom salt is a strong dose of magnesium, and something we should routinely do, and sweat most days. So cleanse with Kelly, cleanses and detoxes have certainly gotten a bad rap because there's so many different variations and offerings of them. A juice cleanse is not a true liver cleanse. A juice cleanse is giving your gut a break. A cleanse needs essential amino acids to help with the 3 phases of detox and specific nutrients, especially a potent amount of antioxidants to keep those moving toxins safe until they get out of your body. But when a cleanse is done well, it's a loving ritual of self-care, a means of slowing down and checking in with yourself, and a way of making your health a top priority so that you can feel vibrant, energized, and fully dialed into life. So cleansing involves changing one's lifestyle and diet to allow your body to facilitate its detox pathways and to take a break from whatever might be causing the issue, allowing your body to repair. And that's why I do the program 4 times a year. And I don't expect clients to do it 4 times a year necessarily, but the opportunity is there. And when you join the group, sometimes dates just don't work, but when you join the group, there's more momentum and accountability and just community and camaraderie. So I guess I'm straight up pitching. I'm pitching. If you're on the fence of doing the cleanse with me, I highly encourage it. We will start on Monday. There'll be another group kickoff call, and you can click on either one of these to get the product. This one here is strawberry vanilla. It's actually back in stock today. Otherwise, there's a chocolate. And then if you do want the pea protein, the vegetarian form, there's only a 21-day supply right now. And that 21-day will not go to waste. That extra week won't go to waste. You can utilize those packets after a vacation or even just continue the program transitioning off the 2 weeks if you get the 21-day box, which I often do. You can also just use the packets or protein powders whenever you like, or you can also use them after a evening that you go out to dinner and have drinks or so forth. So Cleanse with Kelly starts next week. There's links there if you would like to do it. But the cleanse unlocks these 3 pathways, phase 1, 2, and 3. It unlocks toxins, it neutralizes them, and it eliminates them. Elimination includes sweating, peeing, and pooping. So we need to make sure we're doing those things. But before we even get to peeing, pooping, and perspiring, the 3 Ps, we need to make sure we're managing stress. Because when we are really stressed, our detox pathways, those bodily, naturally daily functions, close off. When we're stressed, we're just building up toxins within our body. If you think about it, usually we're stressed, we can get constipated, but literally natural detox pathways, just cleansing the blood, the liver efficiently working, will be shut down when we are overwhelmed. So continue to take those deep breaths and tell your brain everything's okay. Even if you have a deadline down your throat, continue to take those deep breaths to tell your body is okay. Yes, you have to work hard, but you can tell your body it is safe and it's okay. But let's go a little bit further. I'm going to check myself for time. I just love talking. Short and sweet box breathing is really helpful. Also with breathing, consider air purifiers or opening your windows as much as possible. In our household, we build up toxins in the air, things we can't see. Just do the best you can and consider what type of household cleaners you're using and scents, candles, and so forth. Overall, with peeing, just make sure you're drinking enough water. Bring in the electrolytes, bring in the element, overall. And if you're thirsty, it's too late. I went on a bike ride with my family last night and I have this giant Stanley here in front of me and I'm on the bike ride. I'm like, man, I'm thirsty. I got home and I drank this entire Stanley within 5 minutes. I was like, well, there you go. I sweated a lot this weekend and all the things. But do the best you can. And once you notice you're thirsty, to really catch up and make it a game and even another game the next day. So again, I have 2 drinks in front of me. So I know today I just really need to focus on that hydration rather than hyper focusing it at night before bed, because then you impair sleep. So consider, look at the big picture. Don't look at a goal in isolation. Overall with our bowels, increase fiber the best you can, improve stress, and then think about the organics and the GMOs that I had mentioned. If you are having constipation, I think there's an opportunity to think about, what am I not eating? I had a client last week and we ended up doing a stool test. That's when we collect our poop in a little boat, a little paper boat, and then ship it off to a lab. And then we look at the bacteria to see what bacteria are present, the good and the bad, to make sure there's no pathogens, and also to see if there's inflammation in the gut, and also to identify if there's enough digestive enzymes absorbing all the fat and protein and carbohydrates. And this client was consistently constipated for quite a while. And looking at how depleted her gut bacteria was and how imbalanced the bad bacteria was to good, there's always a reason. It just doesn't happen. And I was like, for 21 days, and it's not something we all want to do. I said, for 21 days, strict gluten-free, or of course you can do a wheat zoomer. And I saw her 1 week into it and she's like, oh, I think I have to be gluten-free for life. So when we are constipated, it could be a food group that we're sensitive to. It could be a number of things. I could talk quite a bit here, but another thing I want to point out is vagus nerve support. Big breaths can stimulate that vagus nerve, which helps regulate our mood and the motility of our gut. I know I have a damaged vagus nerve by a test called an IBS Sure. It's about a $150 test. And what I identified is that I have damage to my vagus nerve. I have slow motility. And now every evening I take this vitamin before bed. That's basically ginger. So a lot of times people say, oh, you have a sour stomach, have some mint or ginger. But that ginger is helping motility, helping that vagus nerve to wake up. But vagus nerve support is really important. That can be the big breaths. It can be gargling, gargle water in the back of your throat. It can be singing. It can be singing in the shower. It can be singing at church. It can be singing anywhere. But that really helps support digestion, your mood, your optimal health, and so forth. Okay. Again, water, electrolyte, prebiotics, probiotics, a real food cleanse can all support bowels. So when people do cleanse with Kelly, usually there's an increase in volume of bowel movements because it's cleaning a lot of stuff out, but also help regulating the gut the liver, the gallbladder, especially, and so forth. Here's a Bristol stool chart. Ideally, we want type 4. Ideally, we want type 4. What throws it off could be food sensitivity, inflamed liver, food sensitivities, stress, a number of things. But no, 2 snakes a day is the gold medal. I'll lean into the Olympics. 2 snakes a day, 2 type 4s is a gold medal. And that's something we should be trying to strive for. And we should be looking at the toilet every time we take a bowel movement to understand what's going on, what we're eating, what's affecting our bowels and so forth. Overall, 6 to 10 cups of vegetables is superb. So that's like a goal, and a lot of times that might not work. Sometimes you might be eating in abundance. It's easy to do this with smoothies, scrambles, soups, salads, are usually the easiest way to get in, but also just prioritizing even what you said, Rachel, is always start with a vegetable, making that a strong habit. With our fiber, we want to make sure we're eating protein, and leaning into the various types of fiber. You don't want to eat the same types of fiber every single day. So maybe you can take a screenshot of this slide, but here's just like some higher fiber foods just to give you a gauge. Beans are great at fiber. Lentils are great at fiber. I love raspberries. Raspberries are one of the highest fiber fruits. Great for chia pudding, great just to eat, great for smoothies and so forth. My kids put raspberries on their fingers and then they eat one at a time like it's a lollipop. But raspberries are amazing. So are avocados. Avocados are known as a healthy fat, but often forgotten about how high fiber they are. So here's a fiber cheat sheet and some fun ways to eat fiber. Some avocado on those multi-seed crackers. I love flackers. Flackers or flaxseed crackers. I usually take those when I'm on a road trip or traveling because they're salty and crunchy and filling and fiber. Chia pudding. I love the roasted chickpeas thrown on a salad or even just a handful for a snack instead of something like pretzels or a chip. Jicama is so good. They sell it pre-cut at Trader Joe's. Prunes or dates with a little nut butter is Mother Nature's dessert, in my opinion, but also loaded with fiber. You can add white beans to a pasta dish or a sheet pan dinner. So on a sheet pan dinner, I usually have like chicken sausage or kielbasa or even just salmon, veggies, and then I'll throw beans on there as a filler, but also just to load up more on that protein and fiber as well. More examples of beans, edamame, and more fruit combos. Popcorn, I saw this popcorn with olive oil and cinnamon. That's a fun, like real food kind of treat tasting combo. Give that one a try. And make sure you sweat 20 minutes per week. And when we sweat, we really have the best ability to remove heavy metals overall. So here's handouts you guys can click on and it'll pop up as a PDF and you can download. Just ways to optimize your household for that toxin load. And then I have questions. And then here's a functional lab worksheet if you don't have this already. And it talks about optimal ranges. So I talked about triglycerides being in an optimal range. TSH, the optimal range is up to 4 or 5 with most conventional labs. And especially if someone is not type 1, I actually don't see it on here. It might be in my other one. Here we go, fasting insulin. That's one I always like to look at. But this is a great worksheet PDF to download, click on and download yourselves, and just have as a resource. So I'll go into these questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Thank you for being here with me, both Rachel and Kathy. It's been almost 45 minutes. Are there questions I can answer for you both kicking off? No? No?
No.
Actually, where do you get Flackers crackers?
I get them, they'll be at Whole Foods. Always
Mhm.
places like Whole Foods, probably Fresh Time as well. But I order mine off Thrive Market.
Okay.
As I almost cringe. It's so convenient, but it's not very green to order all my groceries and all the packaging, but it is different times. It's a catch-22. Before I go into questions, can I ask you both what's maybe one thing you learned or kind of what was one like, oh, takeaway? If that was a good definition.
Good question. I had to stop. I had a phone call, so I missed part of it. But I would say just the variety of foods. I think
Yeah.
it's easier in the summer to get fresh fruits and vegetables, although um, I don't do it as much, and I tend to go more towards fruits, and I'm trying to cut down on carbs, but also to be kinder to myself. But I like the sheet pan meals that you have and the recipes for those. But yeah, just to try to get 30 foods in a week, you don't realize how hard it is when you have the same things almost every day.
Yeah, definitely. And I find big ass salads. Like I'll get that salad spinner and I'll just like throw herbs. I love throwing mint and jalapeno in my romaine lettuce because I get
Mm.
spicy and then chilling. And then I'll put in the carrots and I'll put in some peppers and maybe cut up celery really small. Things that will kind of sit there well, not tomatoes, that's too wet, right? But I find that big ass salad is usually a setup or that smoothie or that soup. But
Mhm.
yeah, great. Is there something that stood out to you, Rachel?
Oh my gosh, I learned so much when I talked to you.
Oh, good.
Um, just the dry brushing, which I knew, but I didn't ever really do anything with.
Yeah.
And then, just why my insulin's rising in the morning and then I can't catch it. That's gonna hopefully help me because I do intermittent fasting, so I'm not eating like I haven't eaten yet today. So
Yeah.
that was a huge mistake on my
Yeah.
part, and just learning that was because I'm just really struggling with my sugars right now. So
I find too, with the IQ, we have these smart systems where the CGM is talking to the insulin pump. I
mhm.
see sometimes dawn phenomenon, that morning spike more with that system. Like it's a smart artificial intelligence system. It's an algorithm. But sometimes it's too far behind. And then when we're high, we become more insulin resistant. So sometimes when I was using it, I'm not using it right now, I would wake up and just give myself a unit and then get out of
Okay.
bed. And
Okay.
I don't know if you're on the smart system. I think you are, but
I'm on it's the
Metro.
Medtronic
Yeah.
one. So yeah, I mean, same
And I
thing.
will just lie and I'll say 15 carbs.
Yeah. Oh, I do that all the time. So,
I'm like, and I'm eating nothing.
yeah.
But that's one strategy too to tuck away. But I think
Okay.
berberine would be a go-to to get immediately. I'll side message you, and you can do that berberine with the cleanse.
Yeah, okay. I do have the berberine. You put me on that a couple months ago. So I'm getting to the point where I have to go off of it, but I think I'm still good for the rest of this month. So,
Good, good. We'll try a bolus right when you wake up, uh,
okay.
as well. I
Okay.
have a few questions here that I will go through quickly. One was, can you talk about the difference between A1C test, fasting insulin, and fasting glucose? An A1C test is a measurement of blood sugar over 3 months. So blood sugars can be really low and they can be really high, but the A1C can look perfect. I've been there. So I might be like, woo, my A1C is amazing, but really I'm having a lot of spikes and a lot of low blood sugars. So it's just an average. So a fasting insulin can help identify how much insulin is circulating in the body to work with a good A1C. A lot of practitioners are not testing fasting insulin. A lot of practitioners are just looking at fasting glucose and fasting A1C. But a fasting insulin level can be high for 10 years before blood sugars go high. So the change in our blood sugar um, can not always follow the change in insulin. Insulin can keep growing and growing and growing, but blood sugar can be different. But the pancreas is spitting out so much insulin to keep that blood sugar steady. So it's good to have all three. So again, you want the average blood sugar of A1C. You want a fasting insulin to see how much is circulating in your body. And a fasting glucose is not eating for 4 hours and having your blood sugar checked. Um, and this client said she thinks many naturopaths feel that fasting insulin is a really good way to keep track of blood sugars even before A1C, and I agree because if there's high insulin levels, I will know I need to work with a client much more on blood sugar strategies in their meals than overlook as blood sugar as an issue because blood sugars can look perfect, but insulin's might be really high, and when insulin's really high, it's really hard to lose weight. Um, and usually that's a goal people have.
Is
So
that true for type ones as well? I mean, what would an insulin look for me?
yeah.
I
So
mean, would
yeah.
it still show like insulin resistance if there's a lot of insulin in the blood?
Um, you with type ones, we can't have it makes no sense to do a fasting insulin level.
Okay.
Yeah, this would be for
Okay.
non-type ones.
Okay.
But we can know like, oh, all of a sudden after a year, my total insulin per day is a lot higher than it used to be, is usually a better gauge.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
what one person needs for their insulin means can be so different than the next. And it doesn't mean the next person who's might be a little higher has insulin resistance. Our bodies are just also different.
Right. Okay.
Also different. The next question is, how quickly does an A1C, an average of blood sugar over 3 months, respond to lower fasting insulin? It takes a long time for that insulin to change to show up in an A1C. Takes a long time. Again, it can be up to 10 years. Can be up to 10 years. Usually high fasting insulin gets really, really high, then all of a sudden blood sugars will go high. But if blood sugars are high, again, doesn't mean there's a ton of insulin circulating. It could be an infection, it can be inflammation, there can be other things at play. So for this client that's having me answer these questions, it's probably a good idea we connect one-on-one. The third question is, what do functional labs say about a desired fasting insulin level? So if you go to conventional doctors, they'll say less than 10. My rule of thumb is less than 6. And right here, the client noted, it looks like Dr. Hyman prefers 2 to 5. And zero, like we don't want to strive for zero. We need insulin to help glucose get in the cells so we have energy. So we can have energy. We also don't want our CGM lines to look like a flat heartbeat because we want insulin to be moving, blood sugars to be moving so we can get energy into the cells overall. Let's see. Are you familiar with a protein snack called Stars and Honey? I'm not sure. I actually haven't looked at this one. And just to answer briefly, when I look at snacks, so I had a friend at a barbecue and I had a protein bar in my purse. And he goes, "Hey, what do you think of for my breakfast being Larabars?" And I like Larabars. Larabars are whole real foods and usually like 2 to 3 ingredients. These are like dates and nuts and then maybe something else. I was like, I love how the quality of that bar is whole real food, but we need enough protein to support our metabolism, our bones, and our muscle mass. So I showed him this protein bar. It was one from Designs for Health, and it had soy lecithin in it, and I think guar gum. So those are 2 preservatives, but it also had 20 grams of protein. And I eat for food quality and I eat for hormone control. So I was like, you have to weigh the pros and cons. So I think whole real food is best. So maybe this Stars and Honey bar is really good ingredients. But what about the macros? Is it a meal replacement? Are you getting protein from this bar? You have to think about what the goal is with that fuel and make a decision if it's a good fit or not. And I want to hopefully teach people how to make lemonade out of lemons versus saying what brands, what food exactly is the right thing to eat. I want you to be able to have that confidence to make that decision yourself. Um, I've been eating a lot of nuts to add to some calories and protein to my diet. Any caveats? I mean, nuts shouldn't be more than a half a cup a day, and that's a very high end. But it is helpful at gaining weight and having calories and some fiber and some protein. But I think too, knowing this client is to make sure you zoom back, identify what your goals are, listen to your intuition of what your body wants, and make sure you're not fearing carbohydrates and make sure you're meeting optimal protein goals and utilizing healthy fats. So if this person's eating a cup of nuts, I would say lay on that olive oil, lay on that grass-fed butter, have some coconut oil, get fast calories in liquid form. A tablespoon of oil is 120 calories. Last question is, it's the season of fresh fruits. Are there any caveats as amounts of fruits and types to be better choices than others? I find fruit later in the day if someone's insulin resistant works better, myself included. And the amounts of fruit vary from person to person. I don't think anyone should have more than 2 cups of fruit in a sitting. That's just a lot. But I think some people do great at half a cup. I think most people do great at a cup. But I think going over 2 cups can maybe allow for blood sugar spikes depending on what symptoms somebody's having. Yeah, so those are my questions. I think that's it. I won't keep you ladies any longer. It was so great seeing both of you. Thank you for showing up in July with me. I will work on setting my August dates so more people can be planned. And for those watching the recording, thanks for bearing with me, and I hope you learned something today too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.